Have you been wanting to start your own camper van conversion but don't know where to start? You need to start with getting some tools. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk to you guys about 10 tools that you need to have to successfully convert a camper van. So in last week's video, if you guys haven't given it a watch, you can click right up here and give that a watch. I provided a video showing a start to finish process of our first camper van conversion we did last summer. Also, if you guys want to watch more information on that, I have a walkthrough video as well as a whole series dedicated to our different areas that we did during the conversion. Now that we've gotten through that first build and we're looking at maybe doing a few more, I wanted to take time to start making a series about lessons that we learned and things that I would have found helpful and did find helpful during my build. And one of those first things is understanding all of the tools that you might need during that project. Now, one thing I will kind of put a disclaimer here. I'm not going to give you guys 10 specific tools. Some of these are actually tool families or styles of tools that you need. The reason that I'm doing it this way is if I just told you that you needed 10 tools and that's it, well, frankly, it's impossible for you to do that. In fact, this list that I'm providing for you, it more than likely is not a complete list as well. There are going to be little things that you're going to have to go to the store and get during the build. However, if you have these tools at your disposal at the beginning, you're going to be able to get a lot done, which is why I've compiled this list, and I believe that these are the most important things for you. And at the end, I'm actually going to give you guys some bonus tools that were very helpful. They were not necessities, but they were very helpful in making our lives easier when doing our build. So if you guys want to stick around for that, I got a few bonus tips at the end. And a couple more housekeeping things before we jump into it. If you guys have any questions about tools or any questions about processes, leave them down in the comment section below so that I can maybe make some follow-up information for you guys if I see a reoccurring theme. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first tool that you're going to need, and that is our category of saws. During our build, we used quite a few different types of saws, but the three that are very important for you to pick up are going to be a circular saw, a chop saw, and a jigsaw. Now, the reason I put circular saw on here, we really actually didn't use a circular saw very often in our build, and the reason is we had access to a table saw, albeit that my dad is a carpenter and had one, so we used that table saw to make big rips and things like that. But if you guys don't have access to a table saw or don't want to make an investment in a table saw, that is a-okay. Go ahead and pick you up a circular saw, and then I would recommend picking up maybe a Craig straight edge slider. I don't remember the exact name, but it will help you make some long straight cuts on some of those rips that you need to make. If you have a table saw though, you probably don't need to have the skill saw or circular saw. The next one is a chop saw, or might also hear it referred to as a miter saw. Chop saws are going to be very helpful when you're building your cabinets and you're doing any other types of cuts out there. What we used our chop saw for was, like I said, building our cabinets. We use it to cut our furring strip when we laid our subfloor and any other various cuts that we might have found ourselves needing to make. The cool thing about chop saws is, in a van concept, you find yourself using aluminum a lot, which aluminum is a soft, strong yet light metal, and so that's why it's so popular in the van community. But what you can typically do is you can cut aluminum using wood blades. So when you have your chop saw, you're able to actually cut those aluminum extrusions or aluminum edge banding or any other type of aluminum you might be using. So very useful, and I would definitely classify that as a must-have. Whereas the circular saw is more of a nice to have, which then leads me into the third saw I want to talk to you guys about, which is definitely a must have, and that is a jigsaw. The jigsaws are super helpful when you are cutting out any of the structure of the van to put in, let's say, windows, air conditioning units, max air fans, or just you're trying to make other types of specific cuts, or you're doing scribing. Let's say when you're scribing in your cabinets around the curvatures of the van, that jigsaw, really, you're going to find yourself reaching for that a lot, which is why I classify it as a must-have. The thing with the jigsaw is you can also use that to make a lot of those long cuts if you don't have access to a circular saw or a table saw, or you don't want to make that investment. Now, your cuts are not going to be as accurate as you would get with a circular saw and a table saw. But if budget is tight, then I would recommend you could use that jigsaw, and then you can use your miter saw or chop saw to do your other 45 cuts that you need to do to make your structures. That's it for saws. We're going to jump into the second set of tools that you need, and that is screw guns and impact guns. I will quickly just say that the screw gun is a must-have and the impact is a nice-to-have, but I would argue that you really need to consider that impact as a must-have, and for a few reasons. Really, the difference between an impact and a screw gun is an impact is just going to have a lot more power, and it's going to help you get through a lot of these metal structures and when you're like driving in screws and things like that. It's also super helpful with the impacts. You can get an adapter piece that you can use your ratchet ends on, so when you're trying to drive in bolts or you're trying to undo various objects in the van, you can use that impact gun and you'll find yourself using it a lot. Now, the thing about impacts, though, they can't access all of the same accessories that a screw gun can have. And also, I prefer using the screw gun for any type of drilling out, using like drill bits and stuff. You can typically buy these in a kit, so I would recommend doing that so you can get both, because you'll find the impact being very useful during your build process, and they're just an absolute necessity when you are building these things. Which now leads me to the next part, and that's getting accessories for your drills. And a few of these that I want to name for you guys is, of course, drill bits. Make sure you guys get a good set of drill bits, because you're going to be drilling through a lot of different metals. You're going to be drilling through thick wood at times. So you're going to want to make sure you have a drill bit that can eat through that material and also will last throughout the build. You don't want a drill bit burning out, because then it's going to cause issues for you. The next accessory that you're going to want is a hole saw set. The hole saws are going to be perfect for drilling out holes for things like your diesel heater exhaust vent, holes you might need to run plumbing, and useful for drilling out a hole for your shore power inlet if you want to do that. Not only can the hole saws drill through the metal, they can also drill through all the wood. So when you're doing things like putting in a sink faucet, it's helpful to have that hole saw kit. Now, the next set of tools that you're going to need is a set of hand tools, and this would include pliers, screwdrivers, ratchet sets, wire strippers, files, and honestly, you're going to probably find yourself having to go to the store to grab a few other different types of hand tools. But I would suggest, as a start, grab yourself a good kit of pliers. You can get what's called needle nose pliers, which have these long pointy ends. You're going to find yourself using these a lot, especially during your electrical and plumbing parts of the build. But I'm not going to sit here and list all the different pliers and hand tools like that. I'm just going to suggest that you get yourself a nice kit that comes with a variety of these, and you'll find yourself reaching for these a lot. As for the ratchet sets, again, just go ahead and pick up a nice set. You probably can find a set of these with pliers and other hand tools. And the reason is you can't really just go buy one, because you're going to find yourself using a bunch of different sizes, and there's always going to be the wrong size. When you grab one, it's always going to be the wrong size. I promise you, you're going to have to grab another one. So in terms of wire strippers, I really like the automatic wire strippers. There's a few other wire stripper things you can get out there. I'm not going to talk about electrical stuff too much, but what I will do is link a resource for you guys down below that I use that was absolutely helpful, and I recommend their channel. They're really great on doing electrical installs and teaching that. So if you guys are interested in learning that, then again, click that link down below, and you'll also be able to see the different electrical tools that they are using. And the last hand tool that I want to talk to you guys about is files. You're going to need some files, especially if you're cutting into the sheet metal of the van. You're going to need those files to knock down any burrs or anything on the actual van structure that is sticking out, so that you get a nice smooth finish and you don't create any opportunities for leaking or any opportunities to cut yourself. So files are going to help you file that stuff down. Now, the fifth set of tools that I want to talk to you guys about is measuring tools. So you're going to need a good tape measure. This is absolutely a must-have. You're going to need a good level. I would go ahead and just get yourself a nice long level. That way you can use it as a straight edge as well. You're not going to really be using levels inside the van too much, just because the vehicle itself is not always level. Unless you can perfectly level the vehicle, you're going to just be fighting yourself on that. But when you're building things out of the van, let's say your cabinets and stuff, you want to make sure that everything is looking really tight and level. And then again, if you get a really nice long one, you can use it as a straight edge, which you more than certainly will be using a lot. And a pro tip too is if you have a long level, you can then use that as a straight edge for cutting with your circular saw. And I'll talk to you guys more about that tip later when I talk to you guys about one of our other set of tools that you need. And then the last that I definitely classify as a must-have in terms of measuring tools is you're gonna need a framer square. And this is useful for making sure that your right angles are absolutely perfect. This was very helpful when we were making sure our subfloor was well balanced and had nice flow to it. So I would recommend these. They're not super expensive and you usually can get a few different sizes of them. And before we jump to the next one, what I'm going to do is ask you guys to go ahead and click the subscribe button down below if you've enjoyed this content so far. I have a ton of other van content I made from last summer and then also some newer videos and more recent videos. So if you guys enjoy the van stuff and you enjoy anything outdoor related, I teach a lot of photography, I do some travel films, click that subscribe button and you'll be able to stay in the loop on all of those that I'm creating. But I'm going to stop rambling on about that and jump into why you guys are really here, and that is for the content. So let's jump to our 6th tool set, and that is clamps and vices. You need clamps and vices, especially if you were doing this by yourself or even with just one other person. You're going to always find during the build that you need an extra set of hands, even if you have 2 people. The uses of a clamp is just endless. And back to my tip I was telling you guys about with the level as a straight edge, if you use that level straight edge and you clamp it to a piece of wood, you're going to be able to use that as a guide rail for cutting with your circular saw. Now you're going to have to measure the offset from the blade compared to the actual foot of the saw. But again, you're going to be able to use that as a nice straight edge for you if you don't have a table saw. Now the 7th one is really kind of one that's probably overlooked a lot, but I'm going to just throw this in here because it is something you should think about and you should have a supply of. And that is a nice caulk gun and a bunch of silicone and caulk on hand. You're going to find yourself using silicone and caulk and different adhesives during your build. So having a nice caulking gun, now we did not have a nice caulking gun during our build. They're all very old and sometimes a pain in the butt to work with. So in the next build, we will be getting a better one because we found ourselves using it a lot. So go ahead and grab yourself one now, and then you don't have to grab all the adhesives until you kind of know what you're going to do, but guaranteed you're going to be using that caulking gun on multiple facets of the project, especially anything that you're doing that is going to have external or create an external entryway. So if you're adding fans, windows, or any hole that you're cutting in the structure, you're going to probably be putting some sort of caulking or silicone on that. And then I'll give you guys another tip too, is grab some primer paint or just some type of Rust-Oleum brand spray paint, because anytime you cut your sheet metal, you're going to want to spray those ends so they don't rust. Number 8 is a good shop vac. You're going to be making a lot of messes when you're cutting and you're sanding and you're doing all the different projects the DIY project requires. So having a good vacuum is going to help you immensely. I would recommend picking up a shop vac specifically, not just using your vacuum from the house. And the reason is a shop vac usually has a nice long tube for you to use and different accessories, so it makes it easy to vacuum things up, and they're usually a lot more powerful. This is helpful when you're cutting into the van again, so you can make sure that a shop vac is running on the back side of the cut and catching any of those metal shavings going everywhere. Those are just going to cause problems, so being able to have a nice shop vac is going to help you clean that up pretty quickly. So this set of tools here is definitely more of a nice to have. It doesn't necessarily need to be a must-have depending on how you plan out your build. If you're using furring strips everywhere, then you may not need these. However, I would get a good set of these and I would start learning how to use them and plan around how to use them, just because they're, first off, fun to use. Second off, the structural integrity that these create is just a lot better, I think, and a lot more trustworthy. So what these tools are is a Riv Nut gun and a riveter. Now these are different. A Riv Nut gun, what it does is places a nut inside of the structural steel. And how it does that is it puts that piece through a hole you drill or in one of the factory holes that are there, and then it compresses that nut back. And then from there, you now have a nice place to drill in or screw in a bolt. Now, these are typically given as a specific size, so it could be a 5/16 riv nut, it could be a 1/2 inch riv nut. So you'd have to look and read on what your riv nut gun can actually install, and also the size of bolt that you want to be going into that riv nut. A riveter is actually just a gun that would pop into as a pop rivet, is actually what they call it, where it actually just adheres the two pieces together, usually metal. You drill a hole, you put that in, it kind of similar to the riv nut, it compresses back and it pinches that together and holds it together. We didn't use these a lot until the end of the build, and this is something I'm gonna be planning now for the future builds, is we're gonna be using a lot more riv nuts and rivets because I just like the structure that they come with, and they're also just, frankly, can be pretty fun to use. And the last piece that I want to talk to you guys about is a flexible drill head. Now, I put this as its own tool, and I put it at the end separate from our other accessories we talked about for the drill, just because there is a lot of nooks and crannies you're going to find yourself in, and it is going to be a pain in the butt to try to get a regular screw gun into that area. So getting yourself a nice, long, flexible head is going to make your life really easy when you're trying to get into some of these spots. This is also considered a nice to have. It really isn't a must have, but it is definitely worth putting on the list of 10 things that you should be getting. Now I'm going to jump in here before we guys get into our next tips. I'm going to let you guys know that down below, I'm going to go ahead and link my preferred recommendations and also some budget recommendations for you guys if the preferred ones are a little bit outside of your personal budget. But what I will let you guys know is that these are all affiliate links. So what that means is that any purchase that you make using that link, a little bit will be kicked back to me. This is a great way just to support my channel. If you guys like my work and you want to support my work, or by using those links, there's going to be no extra cost to you, but it will definitely help me out a little bit just by providing this content to you guys. So just want to let you guys know that everything is linked down below. I'm also linking a few other resources to some other channels and to some other education content out there that I believe would really help you guys if you are really looking to do this. These are videos and stuff that I use during our build, and their resources. I mean, I feel like our build can speak for itself, that their resources are pretty great. So now that is the end of our 10 tools that you're going to need to make your van conversion as smooth as possible. But what I'm going to do now is give you guys some bonus tools that are really great tools that we used that helped our build a lot. And the first set of bonus tools that you should invest in if you're wanting to make your life easy is pneumatic tools. What pneumatic tools are is they use air as its source of power. So for these, you're gonna have to have an air compressor, but the power that the air gives you is immensely stronger and easier than anything else that you might be using. So for example, when I was talking about the Riv Nut and Riveter guns, I would recommend actually investing in a pneumatic version of these because it's so much quicker, it's so much easier, and the joint becomes a lot stronger in my opinion. The other pneumatic tools I'm going to talk to you guys about too make investing in the air compressor absolutely worth it. One of the tools we found ourselves using was this nifty die grinder. Die grinder made it really easy for those areas that we had to use a file for. And so instead of having to sit there and hand file everything, we're able to use that die grinder to knock off all of those burrs and sharp edges and clean up our cuts. One of the other pneumatic tools we found ourselves using was an impact wrench. Now, I was trying to pull up the subfloor of the original van subfloor, and some of those bolts were pretty stuck in there, and my actual impact here couldn't get the bolts out. So we grabbed a pneumatic impact wrench and we were able to bust those bolts right out of there. So, and the last pneumatic tool I want to talk to you guys about as a bonus tool is an air hose. We use that a lot to clean out the van. We would just open up the doors and we would just blow out all of the different junk and stuff, and then we were able to sweep it up from there. And that is it for the 10 tools plus some bonus tools that I would recommend that you guys get for building your van out. And on that note, if you guys are new and this is your first time watching the video, or you've seen a few of my videos but you haven't made the plunge to subscribe, I'm gonna ask you guys to please consider subscribing down below, as I will have a lot of content based around the van, based around travel, based around photography, outdoors, everything like that. So if you guys enjoy that kind of stuff, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And also maybe consider dropping a comment on something you guys learned or something you want to see. I like to get some feedback from you guys, especially since we are so young on this channel. So, and then the last thing I'm going to talk about is obviously I filmed in a different spot, and that's because I have construction going on in my house right now. You probably heard some stuff happening. Hopefully not. That's why I use this microphone instead of like a shotgun microphone to try to make it a little bit more directional and don't hear all that crap going on outside. I'm in my new shop. It is an absolute mess in here, I will be honest. That's why it's such a tight frame, because I have junk literally sitting all around me. Not just junk, it's just boxes that we haven't been able to move into the house because we're not done with construction in there yet. We will be renovating this shop here soon too, and this will probably be the new home for the next van build. So you guys will probably be seeing some more sets out here. If you guys liked it, maybe consider hitting the like button so I know that you guys like this set. Maybe I'll do some more filming out here. Well, I'm gonna stop rambling and I will let you guys go. Again, if you guys made it this far, thank you. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.